Good morning, coffee moaners. Sorry we're a little bit late. We were just a little bit late.
Yeah, there you go.
It's so funny because it's so different from telly, isn't it, Mark? Where it's just like crazy to the second. I mean, people be screaming if you're late. But
We can't be late.
it's just more chilled.
It's always that feeling when whether you've made a pre-recorded show, edited a show, doing a live show, you know that if that doesn't happen there's a black hole.
Yeah.
But the great thing about the multimedia streaming online world is there aren't black holes. It's one big amorphous universe that you fill with content, and it gets bigger.
I wonder if, because we are unusual in ADHDers, that we're always on time after having just said we're late.
We're 10 minutes late.
No, but we are, aren't we? We're never late for work in sort of telly or anything like that. We would never be late. We're never late if we're meeting up with somebody.
No.
And I wonder if that's because we had so many years in telly.
Yeah, probably.
That we were able to sort of
that
break
there's
that ADHD code.
That call sheet, that date, that time, the wheels, as they say. It'll be wheels at this time. I'm always 10 minutes earlier. You take things slightly closer to the edge.
But then I'm known at least for not being late, though.
Yeah, no, but weirdly, we both know so many people who are always late.
It's weird.
I find it really annoying. Anyway,
we're here now.
What are we talking about?
Today we're going to be talking about doubts around Lucy Letby's conviction. Massive article today in The Guardian. And actually, is it tonight, the Channel 5
I think it's
documentary, which we touched on yesterday, didn't we?
Yeah.
Also, are you hyper fatigued? Most of you, I reckon, will say yes.
Mm-hmm.
And those that don't feel hyper fatigued, we want to hear from you because we want your help.
We're going to be talking about blackout sex. Now, this isn't sex with. It was odd when I was looking for when I was looking for an image to post to best represent this as a story on Instagram. What came up was people with eye masks on. It's not that. This is blackout sex through drink, drugs, or being spiked. Not remembering having had sex. And there's a really interesting piece by a woman who's written a book, a work of fiction, pivoting around her own experiences of having sex in blackout. So we're not going to be asking people to share their own stories, but I think this is something that everyone has either potentially knows someone or has...
Or in some way might have done that. Drunk too much, snogged even somebody that you don't want to, and it's and men as well, of course, not just women.
I'm sorry,
Go on. And Brits not wanted abroad. The countries that just don't want us. And what they are doing to try and put us off from going.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's not just Brits. Because the piece that we're looking at in the Telegraph, this is off the back of Barcelona, Mallorca. We've talked about it a few times. But I've got some strong feelings about it. Holidaying. Holidaying is becoming a new name and shame area.
A new thing we can be ashamed of.
Exactly. And just quickly, because I know a number of people yesterday were saying, how can you have done Coffee Moaning without commenting on the second stage of the French elections and all the sort of unrest and violence and riots? There was someone on Sky News last night, I can't remember her name, but I like her. She's the woman who was on last night, whoever she was. She said, I remember I used to report in Paris. She said, no one riots like the French.
Yeah, that's always been the way. That's the history.
Yeah. But she said they're proper rioters. She said it's proper Molotov cocktails, smashing windows. It's, all this kind of... Anyway, so we haven't avoided it. We don't do the news on the nose.
Yes. We don't. And I always say to Mark, we have to be really mindful of that because we're not. Because there's rolling news all the time. We don't do all news stories.
No, not at all.
We just do...
Thank you, Stacey.
What
yet again.
fires us that day? Have we got something personal to say? What we think that you guys might want to hear? Yeah, because we often don't cover huge news stories because it just doesn't feel right for us because we're not journalists.
No, but in the way that every news story or many news stories feed into you. So, for example, whoever did leave the comment yesterday, and I appreciate you stating it.
Yeah.
We did touch upon the lurch to the right last week. And you're right, we need to kind of recognise that in the second round of the elections, there's been a sort of, I wouldn't say a lurch, but there's been kind of a shift away from the right, which is kind of relieving, relief.
And we should balance that back out because we're worried about it shifting to the right.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Exactly. So thank you for that. A lot of the papers today are talking about Joe Biden. If there's time, I'll talk about him at the end. If not, we'll deal with him tomorrow. But yeah, the big article in The Guardian today is a piece on Lucy Letby. And the penny dropped this morning as I was reading it. It's an incredibly long, weighty tome. I'll pop the link. I think you might need to be subscribed. I'll pop the link underneath this once we've uploaded for anyone who wants to read it. Trigger warning for people, because I know we have people in the community who have a knowledge, have had experience of Lucy Letby, directly and indirectly. So trigger warning, we're not passing our opinion, but we're just sort of sharing in the story that's kind of coming up. Over the weekend, I think we discussed in the Saturday papers what felt like the kind of slightly tasteless shift or move or decision by Channel 5 to do a documentary in which they talk to and query or explore the veracity and the sentencing and the guilt or not of Lucy Letby. And we were like, oh my God, that seems a bit too soon. The families, the parents. And the reason for this, there's a real technical reason, because the Guardian article mentions this right at the beginning. Nothing could be speculated on or discussed or investigated outside of the kind of due process of the court and these the alleged crimes until the court case had finished last week.
And it's always like that.
It's always like that.
Yeah.
But that's why suddenly two things have bounced up quite quickly. There's this Guardian article and there's a Channel 5 documentary, and it's no coincidence they've bounced up at the same time, because it seems, and it would appear, that there is a huge body of thought or a huge number of people, specialists, experts, pediatricians, medical experts, statisticians, who believe that potentially a miscarriage of justice could have happened here. And it's as simple as that. Now,
they say there's no forensic evidence.
Well,
there's no, this is what they're saying. We've got no opinion on this. We really haven't. The last thing this needs is opinions of people that don't know anything. This is just literally what's being reported. Is that, that no forensic evidence and no confession from her. She has always said that she's innocent.
Well, not only no evidence, but no one saw her do anything. So there was no forensic evidence to prove her guilt, and no one saw her doing it. So there was no eyewitness, and there was no with the trial last week, I think one of the doctors said that she must have tampered with the breathing tube because he did not actually see her doing it. And then a lot of store has been obviously put on the statistics of when she was on shift, when she wasn't on shift, etc.
And also the notes that they found in her house.
Well, can I just say on an emotional level, when I saw the first court case and I saw it said I killed them, the words to that effect, I did it.
I think I've got it here.
How much more do you need? That's where I went. How can you, presumably.
Well, that's what you thought. But in a court of law, that is not enough, is it? Because I think at the time that they said, it was like the writings, like sort of almost histrionics. She was in a state of grief, and that it shouldn't be used as, a confession as such. Because then there were other writings like I haven't done anything wrong, and so but a lot of stories in that.
Yeah. Well, Zoe Agnew, the evidence is all there. This is absolutely ludicrous. Well, the interesting thing about this is when you read this incredibly weighty tome, I've always said that I think there's going to be a bit of both with this. I think there's clearly failures within the the health trust within which she was working. There is apparently not as much attention has been given to the fact that there was something like 6 unaccounted for deaths in the ward or in the hospital or within the trust when she wasn't on shift. There was there's a suggestion, and this is I don't think even this article is suggesting that she's not guilty. I don't think anyone's saying that, but I think what's cropping up, and I think the reason this becomes important is, let's say she is guilty and she's been found guilty. The worry, if she categorically is guilty of every crime she's committed, is that further down the way, an appeal will happen and the appeal could be successful. And I think this is why it's important. I think sometimes people get really kind of irate saying, how can you query it? It's not about querying it to say, let her off the hook. She didn't do what she did. It's about has due diligence and a thoroughness been applied.
Either way, whether she's innocent or whether she's guilty, have you left it vulnerable for an appeal?
Exactly. And I think that's why I find it important and interesting to ask the question, because I remember years and years ago, and I think the expert in this is an expert in insulin related deaths. I mean, many years ago, about 20 years ago, I remember talking to this guy, and we were trying to pull together, I think for the Chuckaway channels back in the day, History Channel or something called The Insulin Murders. He wrote a book called The Insulin Murders, and there's a long history of nurses, and it's a very efficient way of potentially killing someone without there being much evidence, and whilst it also being a sort of a medication or a kind of what do you call it? It's a substance or something that the body kind of needs, or you need to put into the body to some degree. And so insulin is a really crafty way to kind of kill. It's a stealth weapon. And I think, so I have this automatic thing that you've got this many deaths, insulin's involved, and there's no clear way to connect her to it. That could as much speak to her shocking efficiency, as it could to there being not enough evidence. You see what I mean? That's the terrible horror of this. Because you made a good point about The Good Nurse, the film, which is based on a true story starring Eddie Redmayne. You did. I remember you said there were a number of deaths in that where he
wasn't there, but he put the stuff into the bag.
That's right. He fiddled with the bags.
Yeah, it's really interesting to reiterate. This could be that to secure that she couldn't, if she is guilty, that the appeal court wouldn't throw this out. I found actually the notes here. The initial trial last night, much was made of notes. Despite these saying, "I am evil, I did this, and I killed them on purpose because I am not good enough," which the prosecution relied upon as amounting to a confession, she has never formally made one. The notes also included the words, "Kill myself right now, hate my life, fear, panic, despair. Why me? I haven't done anything wrong," suggesting a state of extreme distress. There was no apparent motive and no psychological background that matched a serial killer. This is quoting from the Guardian article. You see, that's, I suppose, what they're saying is like, I suppose, what do I know, but just looking at it, that there could be the possibility in an appeal court that if you say that's a confession, then you could also say that isn't, that says I've done nothing wrong.
Yeah, I think that there's a very definite suggestion within the entire, just keep that quote just there just for a moment, I think, I can find it. Sure. There's a very definite suggestion threaded throughout this article. And in fact, I think we should watch the documentary and maybe talk about it with you guys.
Yeah.
The suggestion is that the defense didn't do a thorough enough job. Is that right? The defense? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the defense or the prosecution haven't done a thorough enough job so that this could bounce back into court.
Yeah,
there are too many holes. Because if you think about it, absolutely. I saw this, and I don't know what you guys think. I mean, I saw "I am evil, I did this." For me, that's like, well,
I killed them on purpose because I'm not good enough.
But here's a thought. If you went into defense mode of Lucy Letby with the other quotes alongside it, could you not say, "This is what she felt others were saying of her"?
Yeah.
This is what she felt. Yeah. This is what she was told.
Yeah.
This was what she felt was being. Do you know what I mean? There are ways of possibly, throwing doubt over that too. So I just think I'm not at all surprised, though. I can well imagine that this is very, very distressing for you and your sister. Bless you. And but yes, no. I mean, the documentary is on again tomorrow. The worry is that if it wasn't thorough enough, a serial killer could get off. Whereas I know an awful lot of people are actually sort of saying also involved in this. And I think this is where things in life get really problematic. I think there's a huge dollop of total inefficiency and fucking a mess in that department, a mess in that, postnatal ward, just total kind of.
Well, yeah, because there's been a lot made, hasn't there, of staff, junior staff saying that they were so overwhelmed, it was so busy, they didn't feel they could call the consultants. Can you just get the thing up again? I just want to see who the chap was, Hall. Where is he? Who they quote at the end. He wasn't called to give his evidence. Concerns over evidence up a bit. Yes, there was all the stuff about the embolism as well, weren't there? Well, listen, it's so detailed. It's like we were sitting today saying, God, which bits do we go over? But, have a read. And, let's watch the documentary.
I mean, of course, the article does move towards, could there be other explanations for the deaths? In 4 of the cases, the death collapse was unexplained They recommended a deeper forensic review. The Guardian understands that another consultant neonatologist did then review the cases that were unexplained. Evans said her findings differed from his. She declined to comment. It feels like a lot of different opinions that didn't suit the kind of the judgment that they were driving towards. A lot of other evidence wasn't placed in front of the jury. That's the problem.
And so the expert for the defence said that in his view, the prosecution witnesses exaggerated how well arguably all the babies who sadly died were.
Oh yeah, and there was a suggestion that many of the babies in the ward were much iller or frailer than was actually mentioned. I mean,
he also questioned the plausibility of air embolism and said 6 of the 7 babies found to have been murdered had post-mortems at All-Day Hospital. These pathologists had had the advantage to physically examine the babies and reported no unnatural findings.
Right.
Evans said the defence could have called expert witnesses to challenge his and others' opinion in court, but they did not. So the defence team declined to comment. So there's going to be an appeal, isn't there? And this, I mean, if there's this many questions, surely there'll be an appeal, and then you think, oh God, these poor people.
Yeah, as Zoe says, at the end of the day, it's about the families and how they feel. I mean,
but it is about the families and how they feel, but not just. We have to have the law, as it's laid out.
I think
to protect everybody. So
I think so that this doesn't become one of those real life crime podcast series in years to come. It's one of those ones where you think, hang on a minute, everyone needs to make sure everyone's done their job properly to make sure the conviction is watertight.
If we have no idea and we have no opinion on that, if she didn't, then it's really important that we know why those babies did die, so that
Zoe, she's been denied appeal many times. Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? It's tricky.
It's that weird thing, though, isn't it? It's like, the media can pick something up, a program can be made, and then appeals that haven't been allowed before suddenly are pushed through. So we haven't heard the end of this for sure.
Just going off on a tangent a little bit, it is interesting how people become so obsessed with something like the potential cover-up of something like this. And there boldly is potentially 186,000 people killed in Palestine, but not one single newspaper has even touched it. Just back referencing yesterday, not a single mainstream. Mohsen, your friend, we've checked. No, but we've checked. Not a single British broadcaster or paper has covered the story yesterday from the Lancet.
The Lancet, which is we talked
leading
about it
medical
yesterday.
Journal.
Leading medical journal. Conservative estimate is not that 36,000 people died. That it's closer and beyond to 186,000. Lennox's post today on this as well.
And also, just quickly on that, I just want to say again, you can feel the total imbalance of coverage. Absolutely catastrophic and tragic, the hospital that was hit by Russia. I just want to ask a really kind of difficult question about a really tragic occurrence. Would we have in any way said or kind of managed to kind of accept begrudgingly this tragedy in any shape or form if, say it was 36 kids were killed in a hospital and we used the argument that there was a member of the Ukrainian army in there or a member of the Russian army if it was a Russian school.
And that's why all those children.
No, we were horrified at the number of children that were killed in that hospital strike. Rightly so. Nothing justified it. So why and how does the world get on board with justifying it when it's in Gaza?
All Israel has to say is, there was a Hamas there. Okay, blow up the hospital.
Kill kids. Just kill kids.
Or kill people that are in the hospital because they're tragically ill.
It's the imbalance is shocking.
No, I don't, because my brain wants to explode and then I don't know what to do with it.
Okay, let's talk about, let's move towards, it's not lighthearted, but it can potentially be lighthearted. Let's talk about Brits being worried about going abroad.
Who's more tired, you or me? Who's more tired, you or me? Who's more tired? Everyone has that argument. Oh, I'm tired. No, I'm tired.
Oh, sorry, you're talking fatigue. Really sorry, I was going to the holiday thing.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were doing the tired.
No, it's fine. Yeah, let's do fatigue. Yeah, who's hyper fatigue? Yeah, there is a competition in fatigue, isn't there?
Especially when you've got babies.
Everyone wants to say they're more fatigued than everyone else.
whoever's breastfeeding all night and then with the baby all day, usually if somebody's gone out to work, they come back and they think they're going to be more tired than the mum at home.
Well, I mean,
who's breastfeeding.
I don't think it comes from a bad place. I mean,
because it looks like when you're just sitting with the baby on your breast, it's quite relaxing.
Yeah.
It's not.
Well, this is a piece. This is a piece about the warning signs of being hyper fatigued. Who in the room right now feels hyper fatigued? Let's just ask. Who is hyper fatigued?
I.e., you wake up in the morning, you feel exhausted, you drag yourself downstairs, you kind of come around after your first tea or coffee, you pull through your day, you this is the kind of stuff that article says. At 2 o'clock in the morning, you plan that you're going to have to make the birthday cake for the friend's birthday at 2 a.m. because there's no other way that you can fit everything in. That kind of squishing everything. Last second out of your day to get something done.
I do think that speaks to why some people do struggle to go to bed at midnight. I think there is a feeling sometimes at the end of the day that here's some kind of dead time to the world where I can seek an advantage and perhaps get stuff done.
I mean, do you feel like you're coming round by about 10 o'clock?
Yeah, it's just a definition.
And by 9 p.m, you do want to go to sleep, but what you do is this is what we do. We push through for another 5-6 hours, don't we?
What is hyperfatigue? In a little box here, it says hyperfatigue is the state of overwhelming mental, emotional, and physical exhaustion, which is caused by ongoing and unparalleled demands on our energy.
Let's have a look. How many people are saying yes?
Let's have a look. Who here is hyperfatigued? Got insomnia, always waking up, says Julie Hilton. I'm just tired. My daughter has it with her ADHD, says Pixie Petal. They're hyper.
Oh, thanks for that, Faith. Kevin Maguire, love Kevin, was talked about the Gaza on ITV Breakfast this morning and said children are children. Good on him.
We carry stress in our bodies, says Wonder Woman. Me, a lot of the time, says Kaz. Oh, I like this new kind of. My mornings start before I do. I have been a full-time carer for 5 family members. I have forgotten my own life.
Oh, darling.
Wow. Well, this is interesting as well. Mary Bate, more anxiety than fatigue. Now. Yes.
It's this. Anxiety
is at the core.
Is part of fatigue.
And I like
people that suffer with anxiety suffer with fatigue because it's exhausting to be anxious.
Check out, I mean, again, I wasn't a big fan of the film, but check out Inside Out 2. Take your kids, go and see it. The emotion of anxiety in it is brilliant because she's exhausted. She's exhausting. She's constantly moving. And yet there comes a point where she's so stridently, stressfully trying to control every emotion and every outcome and every eventuality that she ends up like this. Yeah. You become frozen with exhaustion.
Well, that's what I think. Yeah, I think you're sort of driven by you have a lot of anxiety and you drive yourself into the ground.
Yeah, with anxiety.
And so you sleep 4 hours, 5 hours.
5 hours is my option.
And you never go to bed feeling like you've achieved everything, even though you've achieved like we usually have achieved more by the time morning coffee comes than most people do when they go all day. We still go, we haven't done anything.
But because you're in charge of yourself, you're constantly feeding the boss, feeding the machine and all that kind of stuff. But I do like the fact that you've brought anxiety into it. The whole thing around what's it called? Hyperfatigue. Is that you're kind of in a world where, and this is interesting, news flow is part of this. So, for example, I now turn off LBC incessantly in the morning because there's an urgency and a strife to the reporting, and even the energy of the presenters is just like, oh, fucking hell, we're on a fucking horse and it's riding, even if there's no news. And social media plays a huge part in it. Our lifestyles play a huge part of it. There's a lovely moment where she says, on the one hand, you're trying to deliver perfection on social media to the world. And then if you can't, you're thinking, well, I can possibly live my life 10% better than it is at the moment.
Well, the thing is, I think for me, actually, social media is a huge part of it because I'm in a constant state of failure, feeling like a failure. Like I might have cleared up this area and then I open a cupboard over there and I go, oh God, why haven't I just taken everything out and put in dividers and I've got it organized? Oh my God, I must do that meditation. Oh, that book, that looks so good. Yesterday something popped up, the 10 TED Talks that women must listen to. Did you see that?
No.
I saved it. And I noticed
saved it.
227,000 likes.
Wow.
And God knows how many saves. And I stopped myself.
Wow.
And I went, I wonder how many women have saved this.
And not listening, not at the
knowing damn fucking well they're not going to listen to one of those 10 TED Talks that all women should speak to. But it's going to be really useful because you can lash yourself with it. Oh, I downloaded those 10 TED Talks all women should listen to and I haven't listened to any of them. For me, the social media or what we see around us in the world, because there's so much choice, there's so much everything, that there's so much we should be doing. Even the stuff that is good for us.
Wow, lots of comments coming through on this.
Even the stuff that's good for us, Mark. Like, am I doing enough yoga? Am I doing enough breathing? Right. Am I doing enough mindfulness? You know, it's like...
Fucking... Was that woman you said, that wonderful stand-up? I love that.
I've got to find this clip and show you this.
I just wanted to share... Good. I'm going to share a number of your comments because they're so good. Zoe Agnew, I have high functioning anxiety, so I'm either really high or really low. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
Edward Bevington, I popped this up earlier. Just those words made me feel calm for a nanosecond. Tibetan visualization. Okay, moving on.
I must get a YouTube video for that.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have conversations with people anymore. I do it all the time. Oh, don't worry. I've got a video for that. I'll send it to you. Oh, have you heard about this? We're all doing it all the time. Send you that link. It's become constant. The equivalent of we must do lunch because we say, oh, I'll send you that link. 9 times out of 10, we don't send the link.
I promise I'll put the link to the Guardian article underneath this. I push through when I need to parent my little one. If I get a day off and he's in daycare, I just completely veg. Then I feel guilty for not being productive.
No, don't. Okay, that's about staying alive. That's about recharging your battery. Yeah. We put petrols in our car. We recharge our phones. Why do we feel guilty when we are the most complex piece of kit on the planet? Our bodies and our minds. There is nothing as brilliant as genius as us. And we somehow think we don't need to recharge it.
Yeah. Where's your plug-in? I try to give myself permission to stop and do nothing. I always feel like things have to be done and they really don't.
Can I say my line that really annoys you? Yeah, and lots of them have heard it before.
Oh, I love it.
Dolce far niente. The sweetness of doing nothing. And that is adhered to in all the countries where they live the longest. The Mediterranean diet, of course, is the holy grail of everything. No matter what you do, no matter what research is done, everything goes back to the Mediterranean diet because it's the best for your body. But also in the Mediterranean, dolce far niente. They go for a walk after dinner.
What's makes me think
they
of an ice
sit
cream,
slowly and sip a glass of wine at sunset.
God, I suddenly feel stressed at the thought of
They
slowing
might
down.
just sit and watch an olive tree grow.
Fucking hell, that takes
Whereas
forever.
we'd go, I better go online and see where else I can get an olive tree.
Bear with us. We'll be back.
We keep trying to do this fucking to-do list because it feels good when you tick them off.
Are we back? So frozen. We should be back now, hopefully. Are we back?
So your to-do list that you just brought up there, I'm desperate for a to-do list every day because I like the feeling of ticking it off.
Yeah,
but you pull against it all the time because you don't like that. You want to feel like you've never actually reached your target so you can keep on going.
No, because I don't like the idea that there's an end to the list.
Exactly. That's the problem. And that's why you've got extreme fatigue.
Another 80s Claire says, do a done list, not to-do list.
Nice.
Like your style.
Nice.
Okay, well, shall we move on?
And the other thing that she says in this article, guess what? Guess what? Guess what? Gut health.
Gut health. Yes, she does.
Look up for a gut cleanse. Remember, anxiety, all these things are exacerbated by an unhealthy gut. And
I can see fiber. We're back in clear.
Just straight away, if today you want to do something extra for your gut, increase your fiber. Because we as humans are supposed to have 30 grams a day. In this country, you're lucky if the average person eats 13.
I read a piece the other day that said tickling the gut is really good for you. It's really fun balance. All right, okay. I think we're gonna have to drop one of our topics. So I think we'll put blackout sex back. Because I want to talk.
We'll do that tomorrow. So you need to do that properly.
Europe's most unwelcoming destinations for British tourists. This is a piece in the Telegraph. Did anyone see that? Well, no. If you didn't see it, check this out. Give them class around.
I was really frightened by this. Oh no. That's terrible. And that is horrible. That's disgusting. You know that, so, fine. I don't like that.
See, I couldn't help but look at the kids on the table just on the right of frame there. Which, if we've been on the
I'd be terrified. I'd be terrified. That is really scary. Now they might all be out clapping and thinking it's all huge fun, but you have to put yourself into into the person's position. You're sat down. You're vulnerable, and you've got looks like thousands of people coming towards you, shooting things out of a pistol. That is awful. They should come down on that like a ton of bricks. I'm sorry. I'm absolutely up for protest. Fill the streets and walk with banners, but you don't do that. It's terrible.
Just sending Stacey. Can everyone send Stacey a big hug? Don't worry, Stacey. I'm sorry to hear that. Don't feel. You've shared it, but I'm not going to flag it up. I can see you're not a failure at all. So don't be feeling that.
Big hugs.
Big hugs, sweetheart. Victoria Grace, they don't know it's only water in those pistols.
Exactly.
Creates a holiday. I bet they earn a living from the tourists. They want to
do you know you can almost get the same time for a fake gun as you do a real gun? I mean, obviously they're plastic guns, so you know it's not a real gun. And that's because the fear is the same. If you go and hold up a bank with a gun, it's people are terrified. Nowadays, because we know about acid and all that, that is as scary as if
my daughter would have been traumatized.
I would have been.
So this is the story that more and more places across Europe it's not just British, to be honest with you, but Brits are particularly shitty when we go abroad. It has to be said, a lot of us, en masse. And I just think I was saying to Nads earlier, I think this story around increasing protests, I mean, in Mallorca, there have been massive protests. I mean, you're looking at 10 to 20, 30,000 in Tenerife as well. I think, there's protests, there's pushback. Ibiza, there's been protests.
Croatia?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, this is what depressed me. 300 euros you will get fined for pissing in the streets in Croatia. Why are people pissing in the streets? Yes. I mean, it's always men. I'm sorry. Try being pregnant. Try being 9 months pregnant, and you find somehow it's laziness. It's rude. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. 300 euro fine. Brilliant. I love that, because somehow we've lost the ability as adults to just behave in a decent way, or in a way that we would tell our children off. We tell our children off for that. And 150 euros for vomiting in the street. Well, good. Because if you got yourself so pissed that, there's a group of you all vomiting in the street, that's horrible. But it's a hard balance, because they do need tourism.
Well, I mean, it's the forever Faustian pact, isn't it? It's like I was talking to a friend of mine who I was working with last year on a film. He was from Cornwall. And I was going, why do you hate? Why do I'm not saying all Cornish people do, but I said, why is there a feeling that so many Cornish people? I said, I understand why, because there's just a sort of disregard. There's a lack of politeness. It's just
houses being bought up, so they can't buy. That's terrible.
No, that side of it. But straightforward tourism rather than buying up a county. I agree. And she was like, well, she said, yeah, we need you. She said, we just can't fucking stand you, because and she did actually. To be fair, she said it's the attitude that comes with it. It's a kind of, here we come, we're just going to use. We're just going to use rather than we're going to sort of actually relate to or kind of respect or treat kindly what they're using. Now, not everyone is like that. I mean, what we love about Cornwall is precisely its kind of nature. We like to go at times when it's not touristy, because it just you feel a sense of, I don't know.
I think there should be more protection. For people being allowed to just come in and buy all the houses.
Well, I think...
The last time, I can't remember where it was, we were in Cornwall, we were looking at these places, and we were being told some of the money that is being spent on these gorgeous little fishermen's cottages, having all sorts of saunas and everything put in. And you think, well, somebody should be protecting that, because the Cornish people are being pushed out of it.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it needs, there
There's
needs to be, just to protect.
But I was saying to Naz earlier, I've got a weird, I can't help but relate these protests in Europe in a weird way to being the flip side or the other side of the coin to the immigration crisis that we've got going on in the world. It's like the schism between haves and have-nots and other countries and those who kind of go on holiday to these countries. It feels like this is the underside of it. You're right. How will these? I don't understand how these communities that are based on tourism can survive. But maybe what these places are saying actually is there's a tipping point. There's a tipping point at which the very thing you're traveling here to experience won't be here because, and we've all been there. We've all been to places where
we've already said we're not going to Barcelona.
Well, exactly, but not because of the protest, but also there's no water. I mean, these places are struggling in different ways, and I suppose at some point you have to go, hang on a minute. Which priority is more of a priority? Drinking water in Barcelona or the sheer scale of tourists? Maybe what they're after is a moderation of tourism. And I wonder whether actually eventually...
And I think they're right.
I think eventually the whole package holiday thing could eventually end up being sort of stigmatized in a way that smoking has been. It's kind of like, how many holidays, how many, people are going to these places? How many people can an island, tolerate?
It's like the other day I saw something. I said, oh God, look at this beautiful place, this forest in Wales. I said, God, it's the longest boardwalk in the world. Oh, I'd love to go there. I'd love to walk through there. And then I looked at the comments, one comment after another, saying, please don't promote this area. We're already overwhelmed, one after another, after another, after another. And you think, yeah, this is a massive incoming problem. There's too much movement.
So now
the pandemic, sometimes I think like the planet keeps giving us ways to sort of, come back to ourselves. Like the pandemic, nobody was traveling anywhere. And then people were staying in their own country, and then, everything was lifted and it's gone crazier than ever before. It's like we're given chances, we're given windows of maybe how we could start rethinking the way that the world lives, but
I don't know if we can because there's too many people. It's like you just said, you find a tiny corner of somewhere and you go, Herefordshire is a good example. Herefordshire, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Yeah, it's in a really awkward part of the country, which isn't really en route anywhere else, which is why it's... But you try and go anywhere, everywhere's been found. Yeah. Everywhere's been found. Zoe says she feels the same about Irish beaches. I don't know what the answer is. It's just like it's like a voracious appetite to consume the planet.
I mean, the thing is, it's like everybody. So, like the Welsh, when they don't want people to come to the Welsh, but Irish when they don't want the Irish to come, the Spanish when they don't want the Spanish, are all those people also willing to not travel anywhere? So like in Spain, you might want to save your beach and your water, but would you go to the Caribbean?
Yeah,
and it's mine, but I also want yours. That's the problem.
Yeah. Edward Beventon, good point. Press is pushing it. I mean, how much of it? But I mean, we are seeing these projects. I do think you're right. The press seizes upon these things, amplifies them. But what you do feel, I think, sometimes, and this is where the mainstream media can be a sort of barometer, is the regularity with which these stories punch through. And actually, a lot of these stories are driven by social media footage.
But also it's true.
And it's true. Yeah,
we are ravaging the world. Yeah. We are all going around wanting more and more and more. All of us. We all do it. We travel. We love to go abroad. We're
all responsible.
Guilty.
Okay. All right, guys. Stacey, sending you a big hug.
Yes,
big. Do not. Sorry, you've reached out, and everyone here has kind of sent you love. And
what I would say to you is, if you wanted a resource for your family, is go to who's that lovely doctor that was on Love Island and has done the whole campaign about taking the pill and there not being any shame. What's his name?
I know
somebody knows here.
I can message later.
He's a really good resource on this, because he was the one that started that hashtag Take My Pill, and people all over the country were taking their pill and videoing it and doing it. So they may just be scared. It may just be they don't know enough. And Dr. Alex. When they know more, they might be, but you just keep safe with what you know is good for you.
But what you've
said, can't do other people, but you can do.
And what you've said and what you've done in sharing is you've reminded us all that the stigma, it's easy to sometimes feel that we all accept and we all understand, And actually, in the real world, not everyone does necessarily. And so, this stigmatization, it shouldn't happen. You shouldn't feel it. But in terms of saying that doesn't help you when you feel your family is making that judgment. So, reaching out to like-minded people is really good. It's really important. But, sending you so much love, Stacey. Yeah.
Lots of love, everyone.
Yeah, guys, have a lovely day, and we'll see you anon.